I too grew up believing in evolution because that is all I ever heard. I didn't grow up in a church home. Throughout my whole formal education, all the way through college, through graduate school, and finally into teaching, I never doubted evolution. My wife, Mary Jo, has degrees in biology and a major emphasis in science education. She grew up going to a church, but still ended up believing in evolution. Mary Jo, why don't you tell us about your story?
It's true, I did grow up in a Christian home. I went to church every Sunday I can remember when I was a kid, and I did believe in what the Bible said. I believed that God created. I believed in Genesis. But at the same time, I was going to public schools. And in the public school system, I was taught a very different idea, this idea of evolution. The trouble was, I ended up believing it too. Now, you might wonder, how in the world can you believe both of these things at the same time? Well, what I did in high school was draw a big line right down the middle. And I put church and the Bible and creation over on this side, and I put evolution and science and school over on this side. And that seemed to settle the issue for me as long as I was in high school. From high school, I went to a church college. Now, what would you expect that you would be taught in a church college? Well, you'd expect creation, wouldn't you? But the church college I went to, they didn't teach creation. They taught the idea that those days in Genesis were really periods of time, millions of years long. That somehow that sequence in Genesis was roughly parallel to the idea of evolution. Somehow they taught the idea that Genesis was just a myth written for primitive people who couldn't understand the science of evolution. They said that God was involved with this evolutionary process. He must have used evolution as his method of creating. That idea, by the way, is called theistic evolution. And there are some serious problems with that, which we'll talk about later. But I bought that idea because I had, remember, science on one hand and the Bible on the other, and now I could put them together, I thought. And so that's what I did. I went from that church college to a secular university. Of course, in the secular university, what do you get? Nothing but evolution. And so I ended up being thoroughly indoctrinated in the idea of evolution. Nobody in that secular setting ever said that God was involved with this process. Had I been really logical, I would have tossed the Bible completely at that point. I didn't go that far, thank God for that. I did try to hang on to my faith, but it certainly was a confusing thing to me. However, when I did get out of school, what could I teach? All I knew was the theory of evolution. So when I taught biology, I taught what the book said. And of course, all the books taught evolution, so that's what I taught too. I'd probably still be there teaching evolutionary biology, except one day God intervened in our life. I was shopping in a little second-hand store up in Alaska, and I came across a book that was called Evolution, The Fossils Say No. For 5 cents, I bought that little book, and it just set us spinning. I read it from my perspective in biology, and I went, wow, if this guy's right, then a lot of stuff we've been taught is really wrong. I gave it to Dave, and he read it from his perspective in geology. And as he studied it, we decided we'd better start doing some more thinking on this issue. So we began to study and to research. As a result of that time of study, and based on the scientific evidence, both Dave and I had to give up the theory of evolution. You might say we evolved from evolutionists to creationists, and it didn't take millions of years.
Well, isn't it sad that many church colleges and even some churches are teaching evolution? They certainly have been influenced into accepting or compromising with the evolutionary naturalistic worldview system. But it is understandable. If all you hear is evolution, you tend to believe it. Many of you hearing this message may believe in evolution or perhaps have serious questions about evolution and your faith because of the teaching you have received. Even if you don't believe evolution, many of your friends do. Now here's the big question that we are going to address. Are you just the product of billions of years of gradual changes of evolution as goo changed into you by way of the zoo? Or are you the special design of our Creator God? If God did create, did He use evolution as His method of creating? Another question is, can millions of scientists throughout the world be wrong about evolution? In this series, our speakers will share why we believe evolution doesn't hold up to scientific or biblical investigation. We will share why we believe that you can trust the Bible, all of it, and that God did create without any need for evolution. Some of the sessions will deal mostly with science. Some will be more biblically oriented. Dr. Dan Korow is a doctor of veterinary medicine. He will share from his medical background why evolution just can't work. Richard Stepanek grew up on the farm. Creation versus evolution is his hot button, and he loves to study. You will enjoy his down-to-earth approach and enthusiasm for this topic. Mary Jo and I founded Alpha Omega Institute in 1984 to let people know that evolution is riddled with holes and that they can believe the Bible, all of it. Our mission has been to help people grow in their relationship with God and others as they discover creation and walk confidently in the truth of His Word. All of us AOI speakers will give insights into why this is an important topic and share why scientifically and biblically evolution can't hold up to scrutiny.